So to get started, you measure 500 grams of flour, plain white flour, and then you put 80 grams of butter inside. If you're using fresh butter, make sure it's not too cold so that you can actually mix it. What I also do is I mix 3 deciliter of milk with 1 big spoon of sugar. There you go. And 1 big spoon of salt. There you go. Adding half a cube of fresh yeast. If you don't have fresh yeast, you will use the powdered one. This one is 7 grams. So I prefer the fresh one, but it's really not a big difference. So feel free to use the powdered one. And the yeast needs to kind of sink in a little bit with the milk and the sugar. So you can just stir it a little bit for it to dissolve. And you add the egg, 1 full egg. Yes, the other egg you're seeing, we will use it later on, so keep that. Now you just keep mixing the yeast with the sugar and the salt and the egg. You will see that the milk will get a bit thicker. And once everything is well mixed, you can add it on top of the flour and the butter that you have already here. Make sure that nothing is left in the cup, especially no yeast. There you go. Voila. And then it's time to mix. So you may either use your hands, your clean hands of course, or a mixer to get the dough. I will use the mixer, but feel free to use your hands, it's perfectly fine as well. Once you're done kneading, your dough should be a little bit like a chewing gum, but not too sticky. So you should be able to drop it off like this without having everything on your hands still. If it's too sticky, add more flour to it and keep on kneading until this is the consistency. So depending also on the size of your egg, of course, you might need a little bit more or less flour. Once you're done with that, you put it back in the bowl and you cover it. Ideally, you keep it in a warmer space and wait until it grows to double its size. So you check, now it's this size. Let's see, maybe in an hour of time, it will be much bigger than this. Then we can continue. So 1 hour is over. Let's see. Yes, this looks good. So the yeast has made the dough to grow a bit, and we can now continue forming the Zopf. In order to do that, you need to split your dough in half. Then I'll show you what to do with those two. The same size. You should have a flat surface, because this will help you, and then you start rolling it out. So this does take a little bit of practice. It's basically moving your hands from the back and then with a little pressure out to the side. This way you can really make a long snake-like shape. And you need 2 of them. So just go ahead. It should be approximately the same size, the same thickness. Otherwise your bread might burn if it's too thin at some point. So if you have the 2 rolls, almost the same size, you build a cross like this. I hope you can see it, yeah. And then it's just crossing the ends. So you start with these 2, you cross them and lay them down. You take these 2, cross them and lay them down, and you keep on going and going and going to the end. There you go. Let me turn it so you can see it. And that is the traditional shape of a Swiss Zopf. We're almost done. We need to let it rest a little bit more. So I will put it sheet with baking paper, ideally, so that it can easily be removed later on. And I will cover it again and let it grow again for like half an hour, because that will really give the bread a nice texture, a nice and fluffy texture. So now that we have waited another half hour, we are ready to finish up. So what you want to do is to preheat your oven at 220 degrees, right, both sides. And while doing that, you can start to brush up the Zopf with the yellow of one egg there. That's the egg that we kept aside before. So don't use the white part of the egg, because it's gonna look funny on the bread. Just the yellow. And brush up the whole bread with it, because that will give it that nice color and make it to be even more delicious in the end. So brush it up, and then we are going to put it in the oven at 220 degrees for like half an hour, I guess. But it's good to always check on the Zopf to make sure it doesn't burn. So if you feel it's too hot, you reduce it. And we are almost through. So as you can see, it's a bit of a long process, because to mix the ingredients is one thing, but to have the patience to wait for the bread to grow to the correct size. But it's really worth the while, because it's the yeast that makes the bread to grow, and it's the yeast that makes this bread so delicious if you just give it enough time to grow. So here we are. Let me open the oven, and then I like to keep it down, so not on top, just right here. Let's see. Half an hour is over. Yum. This beauty. So if you think it's done, basically you can turn it over and knock. So if you can hear your knocking, you can be pretty sure that it's well done, well cooked. I normally let it cool off a bit. And if you have the patience to wait, you let it cool a bit. Otherwise, be careful cutting it off. It does smell delicious, so I totally understand if you wouldn't want to wait. Look at this. So that's a Zopf, and your neighbors will be jealous from the smell. So you better make enough to share, or lock your doors very well to eat it yourself.